So, namaste and good day to all of you joining from all over the world. This is the seventh regional dialogue on national evaluation policies and systems and is the first event of this year's EvalVision Asia. So, hearty welcome to everyone on behalf of all the organizers of this event, which are on your screen Eval4Action, Asia Pacific Evaluation Association, EvalYouth Asia Chapter, Asia Pacific Parliamentarians Forum for Evaluation, and the APC Hub. Please keep adding to the chat all of your questions and informing us where you're joining from. Over to you, Rajni.
Good morning, everyone. And in my place also, we greet each other saying namaste. And well, basically, I'm from Nepal and but based out of Bangalore, India right now. And just a very basic things to let you all know about the um, few things that we all are aware of. Housekeeping rules, keeping the microphone muted, and please rename yourself so that we know who you are, from where you are, like country, first name and last name. And any concerns, any question, please leave them in the chat bar. And as Yatin had told us, no, how do we greet each other in our place? And please write your where you logging in from, and how do we greet each other there locally. So it'll be very interesting to know. And before we start, I just want to let you know that this event is actually a part of Eval Vision Asia. This Eval Vision Asia is more of celebrating our accomplishment in 2024, and we're getting ready for 2025. So we, as we are towards the end of the year, we have three virtual events and two face-to-face events. And as you can see, regional dialect is one of them. And tomorrow is another webinar on community ownership and evaluation. And the third one is on 28th November, which is Nexus of Environmental, Social, and Governance and Social Impact Measurement and their values in SDG evaluation. Please don't forget to register yourself for that event as well. And as you can see on the screen, we're having the fifth Asia Pacific Winter School for Young and Emerging Evaluators and academic symposium on M&E education, which is one of a kind, which has never been happened before in the past, as per my knowledge. So this is face-to-face events that is going to happen in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Over to you, Yatin.
Yes, so I'll quickly introduce our moderators. Rajni is a consultant and a co-lead of our NEPS theme, the Promoting National Evaluation Policies and Systems theme of the Asia Pacific Regional Evaluation Strategy. And myself, Yatin Diwakar, also co-lead at the theme.
Uh,
Moving on.
I just want to add something here. Yatin is also a scholar for PhD, and very soon we'll be calling her calling him Dr. Yatin. So we will be it will be our pleasure to say that.
Thank you, Rajni. Now it's my I welcome Professor Yoko Ishida, who is the president of Asia Pacific Evaluation Association and a professor at the Hiroshima University since 2015. And she has an extensive experience in international development. Professor Yoko, for the opening remarks.
Okay, thank you, Yatin-san. So, good morning and good afternoon, distinguished participants, colleagues, and partners from across the Asia Pacific region. I'm Yoko Ishida, president of APEA and president of Japan Evaluation Society. So on behalf of the Asia Pacific Evaluation Association, EvalYouth Asia, and the Asia Pacific Parliamentarian Forum for Evaluation, it is my honor to welcome you to this regional dialogue on national evaluation policies and systems, or NEPS. Today's event is a significant milestone in our collective journey to promote robust evaluation systems as a cornerstone for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals in our region. So evaluation plays a pivotal role in driving evidence-based decision-making and fostering accountability in the public and private sectors. As the backbone of effective governance and sustainable development, national evaluation policies and systems are critical to ensuring that policies and programs are inclusive, impactful, and responsive to the needs of our societies. So it is this understanding that brings us together today under the Eval4Action campaign, a campaign a campaign rooted in the belief that evaluation accelerates progress toward the SDGs. So I am inspired by the diversity of perspectives among the participants today. So from both leaders and government officials to development partners, young evaluators and parliamentarians. Your contributions are essential as we tackle the challenges of formalizing NEPS, institutionalizing systems, and fostering regional cooperation. So thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to the great output that will emerge from the dialogue. Let's make this event a platform for action, collaboration, and transformation in our collaborative pursuit of sustainable development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Yoko. Thank you for your opening remarks. Very inspiring. Thank you. Now, we would also like to call uh, Uga, and she's also, we would like to call her for the opening remarks. Is Uga there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Mongolia, and welcome to the Regional Dialogue on National Evaluation Policies and Systems. And I'm a co-leader of EvalYouth Asia and a board member of Mongolian Evaluation Association. It is an honor to welcome you for the first event of one of the series events of EvalVision Asia 2024. And also, EvalYouth Asia is always grateful for the support of EPIA, and I'm always proud to contribute to the efforts for the development of evaluation practices in the region, like today's one. And national evaluation policies and systems are one of the fundamentals to ensure accountability and transparency in each of our countries, and to make decision makings more grounded in evidence and reality. And as many of us know, this journey to build this national evaluation policy and systems and institutionalize it is very complex, often requires the involvement of various stakeholders. And one key element of this journey is such kind of a discussion like we're gonna have today. So I hope everyone would engage actively today, and today's dialogue will deeply reflect on the topic and learn from the insights and experiences from the different countries from our speakers. So I encourage everyone to actively participate and use this opportunity to engage with our esteemed speakers. And I also believe that your engagement and effective or meaningful participation will strengthen our collective efforts across the Asia Pacific region and bring benefits to each of our country. Well, thank you for joining us today, and looking forward to a valuable discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Uga. Now I welcome Mr. Mohit to present on the overall status of the national policies and systems in the Asia Pacific region. Mohib Iqbal is a member of the NEPS team of the Asia Pacific Regional Evaluation Strategy and a member of the Afghan Evaluation Society and the Australian Evaluation Society. He's an economist with over 15 years of experience in evaluation. Mohib, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Yatin, and thanks, everyone. So I will present on the NEPS data that APIA has collected in the Asia Pacific region. I will be very quick through these two slides, and then I will show you some maps where we have visualized this data. The data collection started in 2019. This was during the third National Evaluation Capacities Conference. The data is collected using country surveys, and WOPEs in each country has supported this data collection. The key reason we are collecting this data, I mean, of course, there's many reasons, but is to start to inform policymakers and program implementers the advocacy work that is happening both by APIA and other organizations to support that and to provide information for researchers who are working, researching national evaluation policies and systems. Next slide, please. So just to give you a little bit, a quick sort of what we are going to see in the maps is while the data collection sort of collects data from every country, and APIA promotes the development of formal policies and systems in each countries, we also acknowledge that national evaluation policies and systems are context specific. Different countries have different needs and staff started at a different stage and deals with it in a different way. For example, some countries are, have a national policy. Some other countries have, there is not much national policies, but then they have, state level or federal sort of, unit level policies. Um, to try to sort of avoid direct comparison, but also provide some level of understanding of where countries stayed in relation to each other, we developed a four level of scale where it shows some where progress has been made on these national evaluation policies and systems. So there is the emerging countries where some sort of work is happening and it's in the progress at early stages. There's no formal laws have been drafted or approved. Evolving is where draft has been developed and it hasn't sort of been formalized either through parliament or through some sort of government approval. Embedding is where some NEPS document exists, and excelling is where institutionalization has happened. So there's four different type of countries. Um, as we said, while this adds some comparative sense, we also strongly believe that um, these national systems and policies are context specific, and every country has its own systems. I am going to share the maps. Riatin, if you stop sharing, then I will be able to share. So what you see here, is it? It's visible. I'm hoping. So
Yes.
we have four different tabs. One is for national evaluation policies. Another one is for whether there is a designated institution that is running the evaluation scene in the country. Another one is whether the country has a supreme audit office and whether the country has a WOPE or EvalYouth association in the country or has both. The first map is NEPS policy. So there is a great variation here from lack of data where data is not available. For example, Myanmar data is not available. In Central Asian countries, data is not available. Some other countries, data is not available. To some really strong institutional system, for example, in Japan, which has a sort of a strong regulation on M&E, where we have Nepal. Nepal recently, in March 2024, passed its M&E Act, that's post Manila Declaration. And then we have Australia, for example, where even though there is sort of a national public governance and performance accountability act, and then each state has its own policies to some variation in the middle. So this shows where the evaluation policies or a national document that sort of mandates undertaking evaluation exist or not, or a variation of it exists. The second tab will show us whether a national, a designated institution exists or not. This again is very different across different countries. For example, in Mongolia, we have a monitoring and evaluation and internal audit department that's in the cabinet secretariat. While in India, there is a development monitoring and evaluation office. That's a very sort of different setup. In many countries, there is no data. We are still sort of developing this data. For example, in Cambodia, the Ministry of Planning runs the national evaluation systems and national evaluation policies. So this gives us the understanding of which and then one of the things that I wanted to highlight is, for example, if you click on a single country, it gives you quite a bit of information and you're able to select. There are some links that you can go to those links and extract more information. So this data is very useful. It provides quite a lot of information, even though sometimes it looks very simple and binary. For example, in this case where data is available and data is not available, it also shows, for example, in the case of Japan, which organization is running, and there is the link to that organization where you can go and have a look at the organization, what that organization is doing. The presence of the Supreme Audit Office is another requirement of the framework based on which this data system and the NEEP system is developed. This is again a binary indicator. Shows whether the data is available or not available. And it also shows where this audit office is located in the government system, whether it's in the National Audit Office, an independent entity, or is it it mostly, I think in most countries it's an independent entity, but in some countries it could be based in another organization. And the final tab that we have as part of these maps, it takes a minute to load. Is the presence of VOPE, EvalYouth, or both of them. So we have some legends here that shows you where data is available, where both of these organizations exist, and where one of this exists. For example, in China, one of these evaluation networks exist. And in India, for example, both there's an evaluation community of India and there's EvalYouth India. For example, in Pakistan, if we look at it, Pakistan Evaluation Association and then EvalYouth Pakistan. So we can see that there is a very broad sort of data that has been visualized. Again, the purpose of the data is to make it available, accessible to researchers, to promote and provide some sort of relative or comparative sense of how evaluation in the Asia Pacific region works. I'm also going to point to a number of, so Fiji, for example, in this case has both. It has EvalYouth Pacific, and it has Fiji Evaluation Society, a member of which is with us and probably will be presenting a little bit later. However, the data is still in a development process, and we will be collecting data in the future and ongoing. It will be an ongoing process, and these maps will further develop. And if other indicators becomes available, those will also be available. These maps are now live on the APIA website, and should be able to have access to these maps. Thank you, Yatin. Over to you. I will stop sharing my screen, which I'm going to try to.
Thank you so much, Mohib. Your presentation was very brief but very insightful. We actually got chance to look into the overall status of national policy and system in Asia Pacific region, and indeed this will really support in our ongoing effort on advocating for NEPS in the region. And thank you again, Mohib, for this presentation. Now we're going into the another segment of the of this dialogue. We are entering into the panel discussion, and this panel discussion is going to be very interesting because we have a very esteemed speakers and from diverse background. And it's my pleasure and it's my honor to introduce the panel members to you all. First of all, I would like to introduce you. With Dr. Rojnath Pandey. He's holding. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry, I thought maybe I'm not audible. Anyway, I'll get back to the introduction. I'd like to introduce Dr. Rojnath Pandey. He's the Secretary of Federal Parliament Secretariat of Nepal. And we have another panel member, Professor Brad. He's Associate Professor of Health System Evaluation in University of Melbourne, Australia. And we also have Mr. Ironi. He's the co-leader of EvalYouth Pacific. And it's our honor to have Honorable Natalia here as a panel member as well. She is former member of Parliament, Kyrgyz Republic, and member of the Global Parliamentarian Forum for Evaluation. And we have Mr. Daniel. He's a multi-country evaluation specialist from UNICEF Regional Office for South Asia, and he brings a lot of experience regarding working with various countries in terms of the working with policy and decision making. And so, as you see, we have our panel is comprised with members from diverse background, and offering us the perspective from a bureaucrat, from an academic, a parliamentarian, and a youth representative, as well as a development practitioner. And so thank you so much. First of all, I really want to thank all the panel members to agreeing to come for this dialogue. Now, Yatin, shall we start the panel discussion?
Yes, let's start with the main part of the discussion. So, to start off the discussion, I'll first ask a question to Professor Brad. Can you give an academician's perspective on what are the key policy frameworks or regulations required to establish a strong national evaluation system?
All right, thank you. Easy question to start it off. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. So, as you can see, I'm from Australia. So most of my insights in regard to the question will relate to the context I'm most familiar with, which is Australia. Interesting looking at those maps. I probably agree that Australia is at the embedding stage. So we do have a piece of legislation called the PGPA Act, which was passed in 2013, which speaks to evaluation, requires evaluation. Recently, we have a Commonwealth evaluation policy, and 1.5 years ago we established, not me specifically, but the government established an Australian Centre for Evaluation. So there's a few quite promising signs around the kinds of things you would want to do to establish a national evaluation policy system. The second thing I want to say is that these policy frameworks, regulations, they come in all shapes and forms. They don't necessarily have to be laws or legislation. So in answering the question, I tend to use the term evaluation policy to refer to frameworks, regulations, mandates, procedures, guides, instruments that government agencies or others develop to formalise how, when, in what ways, and with what purposes evaluations are conducted and used. The one thing I don't know whether we'll get to today, but it'll be good to get some lively discussion on the chat around is, what does a good evaluation policy, regulations, what does a good one look like? I've got a few thoughts on that, which I can offer now, and then we can continue the discussion as a panel and with the questions coming in on the chat. So for me, it needs a good, clear explanation of the concept and role of evaluation. There should be reference to general evaluation standards. There should be clarity around the institutional framework, roles, responsibilities, and linkages to monitoring, planning, audit. There's a question about audit in there. So related evaluative functions, policy making, budgeting, and reporting. There should be complementary evaluation guidelines to operationalise the policy. Before I finish talking, I'm going to say something critical about these kind of written legislative documents. Like they haven't really been evaluated yet. So there's an assumption that if you develop a policy, it's going to lead to a healthier evaluation culture in a country, which will lead to better policies that are evidence-informed and better outcomes for people. I don't think we have scrutinised that theory of change yet. So I'm hoping that that's something that we can continue to do over the next 5 to 10 years as these national evaluation policies come into fruition. And there should be a good evaluation policy should have clear guidance as well around planning, prioritising, In Australia, it's quite common now to see a requirement for a management response to evaluation. It's quite common to see annual evaluation plans and budgets made public. So there's a level of accountability around not only the producing of the evaluation, but also encouraging the use, the demand side of the evaluation equation. So I've talked a little bit about some of the key regulatory instruments that are exist in Australia. I also wanted to say in relation to the scale earlier that so at the moment it's looking quite promising. We have this Commonwealth Evaluation Policy, the PGPA Act, the Australian Centre for Evaluation, and so we've been classified according to that map as embedding, not excelling, which I think is absolutely correct. There were earlier periods 10, 15 years ago where we were probably closer to excelling. So there's no guarantee that this is a linear maturity progression. Things can go forward and backward based on the political context in a given country. So you can't just develop a policy and hope that it's going to solve all the various issues. It needs to be implemented well. That's probably enough for me because I know that we'll talk about challenges, but I did want to mention the significance, I think, around the need to reflect an evaluative gaze back on national evaluation policies and so on, as well as we start to develop them, because we need to, as evaluators, we need to walk the talk as well. So I'll leave it there, and I'll pass back to the moderators.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Bragg. Continuing this discussion, I would like to go to Honorable Natalia. I just wanted to know from your perspective, what kinds of institutions or organizational structures are key to build a strong national evaluation system? You have you have the experience of a global platform as well as the region. So, what do you think about this?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And it's a really interesting topic and discussion because, national evaluation policy is really something like the ecosystem of evaluation. And it has so many different elements and structures that should be in place to make sure that the evaluation is kind of working properly. And from the maps that we showed from the Honorable unfortunately, my region, Central Asia, has a lot of blank information, so gaps, no data. And unfortunately, the situation is like that because there are so many different elements of the national evaluation policies, but hardly we can tell there are robust policies in place. So we're on the way to develop them. But from my perspective, what should I emphasize as maybe the key pillars and the elements for institutionalizing evaluation to make the national evaluation policies not just to be developed in paper, but to be implemented. And this is the problem in many countries, especially in our region, because, it's a really very political issue as well. And I think that Honorable Brad already mentioned the political framework and the context in terms of implementation of evaluation. I'm sure we all understand that so many changes now we can mention in the world. People mostly, they actually, let's say, not really trust so much their governments and parliaments. And there is a lack of trust and lack of evidences. And definitely it's a driving force to implement evaluation as the reliable instruments for evidence-based and responsible management on different levels. But not all the politicians and political systems are optimistic and welcoming this approach. And so this is very important to have the proper leadership, political will, a team of like-minded people in the parliaments, governments, VOPEs, and different sectors who understand and share the idea that evaluation can be the tool for responsible and people needs-oriented political system and governance, generally speaking. So the leadership is very important in different levels and in different sectors. And the next thing, definitely, this is legislation. This is the framework. So legal framework, standards, guidelines, and definitely the framework that says not just that evaluation should be there as an integral part of management for this country, Also, the legislation should regulate the relationships between different actors and different powers, executive branch, the legislative branch, the different actors, and it's not always the place. Sometimes, you know, it's said that just the general evaluation legislation is there, but there are not supportive bylaws that actually describe the whole infrastructure, and there are many contradictions, so the system doesn't work properly. We have those cases as well in our region. The next thing, this is infrastructure. Definitely this sets of departments, units like ministries, responsible agencies, and I'll be more precise about names of these organizations or possible like actors later. But the infrastructure should be there. So who is implementing the legislature, who is providing and producing the evaluation, and who is organizing the monitoring and evaluation of national evaluation policies themselves? This is important question. The next element I would think is very important. This is education, capacity building system. Is it in the country? Is it in place? In our region, unfortunately, there are just few master level programs on evaluation. So who is going to produce the new power, let's say, young and emerging evaluators? And here is the crucial role, not just of the universities and institutions and capacity building, but also cooperation and networking, including like what we're doing now. This is the capacity of APIA, some other organization which bring together the good practices and cases all over the world. And this is the regular lifelong learning process on evaluation. So those elements, from my point of view, are really important and essential. But just a few words about like the entities. On the governmental level, definitely the government can produce and use of evaluation, coming back to the two key functions, who produce, who uses. So the government is one of the key players. In many countries, there are government ministries or agencies responsible for monitoring and evaluation. Sometimes this is national evaluation offices as part of the government units inside of the ministries. And we have this example in Central Asian countries. Mostly we don't have the special ministry or agency on evaluation, but the units of monitoring and evaluation are in some ministries, but it's also fragmented. It's not like the whole solid picture. Then also there was the question, why national audit agencies and central statistical agencies? It's an integral part of executive branch, and all the countries, they have this infrastructure. And we speak about like national evaluation policy as the ecosystem, the solid policy. We should find the place and the proper communication between the evaluation units and those institutions who produce audit and statistics. And sometimes there are missing parts of that communications inside the executive branch and the different players. And then the next level, this is parliament. And sometimes parliaments are ignored by different actors in evaluation societies. And I am, as a member of the Eurasian Evaluation Parliamentarian Network and also Global Parliamentarian Forum for Evaluation, would like to emphasize the role of the parliament, because the question was how to make sure NEP is working, is enabled. So the parliaments have the oversight function, and they have the right to set up the budget, legislation, speak aloud, and raise the voices on behalf of the people. Those key functions, they're basic to develop like the evaluation infrastructure and the set up like all necessary standards, etc. But parliaments, they're not involved, they don't aware, and they're not there. So it's very important to involve parliaments in this system. And there are many good cases like in Sri Lanka and some other countries, in my country, where parliamentary committees specifically work on evaluation. Also, there are different models, and I will tell you later about that. And also it's necessary to have parliamentary units in the apparatus, like the experts who work on the regular basis on evaluation, despite changing of the members of the parliaments. So it should be integral part of parliament itself. And I'm out of time, I think, but just underlining the role of other entities. It's independent professional evaluations who produce of evaluation. This is like independent evaluation commissions, research institutes, think tanks. the problem with them, there are so many of them in the like different countries, for example, in Central Asian region, but they do work as business and they're not very open to open up information. So there should be the different approaches, how to imbued those institutions in the national evaluation policies, because this is like the usual issue. And there were many discussions on the different evaluation conferences, but still the role of those research business like institutes, etc., think tanks, it's essential and crucial for the development and promotion of information and evidences and evaluation itself, but the institutes don't really aware sometimes. They're aside to this process as a big concept, business-driven interest mostly. And definitely the role of VOPE, evaluation capacity building institutions, is crucial and essential. In my country, Kyrgyzstan, all the legislation on evaluation that we have now, and this is strong legislation, started from collaboration between VOPE and members of the parliament. That was the good cooperation that resulted in some good examples. So VOPE is very important anyway, educational institutions, external partners, and as I mentioned, like international organization, also business and mass media. We shouldn't underestimate their role. Mass media actually also is not very much involved or aware the role of evaluation. There should be the system of information involvement and capacity building of journalists, because they are also those institutes who can raise their voice and create the demand from the people's side for evaluation and bring this information to the politician and back to the people, etc. So usually those institutes, they should be the part of the solid national evaluation policy, but not all of them are in place. So I kind of prepared the short table as a checklist, and I will be happy to share at the end of the session if it be useful for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Natalia. Now I will ask the next question to Dr. Pandey. You have worked with the national government in Nepal, and based on your experience, what kind of financial and human resources are necessary to support and sustain a national evaluation system? Also, what are the typical problems faced in the process of formalization of NEPS?
Namaste to everyone. Thank you very much for the question that you raised about the experience of Nepal's in our long history back, that we come with the development of different tools and institutional mechanism in monitoring and evaluation. There are different resources that we feel required about the robust system of national evaluation and monitoring systems. The major chunk of resources that comes about financial resources, especially budget allocation for the different provisions of activities concerned to monitoring and evaluation. In the same way, development of infrastructures and technology instruments, especially the ICT instruments, they are very much important to launch for making reducing the cost about monitoring and evaluation. In the same way, it is also felt need of feedback system development. The resources is necessary to bring back feedback to improve continuously in the loop system. In the same way, we are also feeling about the lack of human resources, trained human resources that may come from the university and academia. We expect from different sectors, the community sectors and other, from where we learn by doing. That's why the skill evaluators, the professionals, the capacity building of the human beings working in this area. In the same way, we also, feel to have a team of resources of human beings working in different level, in a policy level and also in the operation level. In the same way, how we can coordinate each other from one institution to another one is another important. What we learned in the past is that, we started different development activities in the country in project model. After having their shortcomings, we came into the program model, and then we shifted to sector model. We developed, two robust systems in education and health, like, education management information system, and also the health information system, health management information system that is still working nicely in the country to give the real-time data at this moment. That's why we came realizing about the multi-sectoral approach at this moment. That's why learning after, in many periodic plans of the country in the past 30 years, we came into the conclusion about launching, National Act of Evaluation System. And this year, in 24 March, our Assembly, National Assembly and the House of Representatives endorsed this act and finalized the provisions. In the same way, what we realize is, institutional resources, especially legal and, policy framework is necessary. From the very beginning, what we started, making policies and result frameworks. But at this moment, we are not satisfied with this one. What we need is, national evaluation framework network and also technical assistance and consultancy continuously expecting from the system. Finally, what we expect about the resources is sustainability measure concerning feedbacks and also, public engagement and awareness. How to give the space to the citizen in the monitoring and evaluation system. That is our originess at this moment. We are, trying to make a systemic, evaluation through the different level, from community level to national level. As our country has recently gone into the state restructuration from unitary model to federal model, we have a 3 tiers of government system. In the same way, we have also assembly, local assembly, provincial assembly, and federal assembly. And all these 3 layers, they prepare the, act and regulations and also develop the frameworks and manuals for monitoring evaluation. And these resources we are feeling about how we move ahead, making a good system in future, this monitoring and evaluation system that may strengthen and provide the feedbacks. Okay, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Rujnath. Really, the way you emphasized on the need of multi-sector coordination and networking and coordination at various levels from community to national level. It's actually very important. And, just continuing with that, in that line of discussion, I'd like to go to Mr. Ironi. So here's also in the chat box, there's Fiona, who's been talking about the role of multi-sector, multi-stakeholder strengthening. I have a question for you. What role do different stakeholders, in your view, can play in terms of strengthening a national evaluation system? The stakeholders like government, civil society, academia, private sector. You can give from your experience as well as the perspective of you. What role the different stakeholders play in strengthening NES?
Thank you, Rajni, and it's a privilege to be among you all. And thank you for also having the EvalYouth Pacific chapter be a part of this, and most importantly, representing the voices of emerging evaluators of the Blue Pacific continent. I thank Honorable Natalia, Dr. Raj, and everybody that's gone before me for highlighting the roles of different stakeholders and particularly government. So I don't really need to dive in too deep about government roles, which I believe everybody has discussed. I guess I'm gonna, if anything, all I can add on is that, government plays a really important role, especially being the entry point and having that coordination mechanism, systems and power to be able to bring everything together, and whether it is in terms of national development plans or policies, frameworks that can guide development in their respective countries. And, fortunately, one of those approaches that's been taken by Pacific leaders, which I'll really be speaking to, is from the Fiji context, and the Pacific context is really strengthening regionalism. And this is, if you may heard of the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent, that is really a strategy laid out by our leaders that details their aspiration for the community and for its people, and really highlighting cross-sectorial thematic areas from political leadership, people-centered development, peace and security, resources, right up to technology and connectivity. Before I go in deeper as well, I'd like to acknowledge every Pacific Island person that is present in the chat, and please feel free to chime in the chat group if you have any other reflections, or if I've missed out anything. Also, just on regionalism, through the 2050 strategy came the implementation plan for the strategy, and also a MEL plan. So again, it continues to emphasize on the importance of developing MEL plans and also evaluation checkpoints across governments, specifically aligned to those outcome areas, to those goal levels, highlighting the different outcomes, whether it's at system level, at people's level, and what that looks like for at regional level. And I guess it really comes down to national priorities in how much of that are they able to support, and how much of that can assist them in also reporting to more global international commitments. So that in itself is a mechanism to begin that collaborative approach and discussion in ways that we can share best practices from the region, and also speaking to that South-to-South learning. And I'm sure Honorable Natalia, what fascinated me in one of your presentations in Manila last year was, those roles of different committees in parliaments, and how you're able to look at evaluation, touch points or issues or thematic areas that you're going to dive deep into every year. So that similarly, it's something that these frameworks and the 2050 strategy, its implementation plan and MEL plan is also, looking at and also developed to support our government leaders, most importantly in evidence-based decision making. Secondly, there is the most important role of civil society organizations, and knowing that they are the hands, the legs, the touch points on the ground to be able to amplify the voices of our communities and the people that we serve, and what the evaluation serves is a really important component for us to always keep in mind in terms of rolling out developments or evaluations, and always recognizing those existing structures, those civil societies, those organizations, NGOs on the ground who's really doing the work and whose presence is notable and also respected by the people. Because as we all know as evaluators, only when you're respected, trusted, you are then able to get the gist of the reality on the ground, to then help facilitate the discussion and those the needs that the people really want for themselves. That is on the civil society organization, and following that is our wonderful institutions like academia. These the academic institution, research institutions speaks to their role as entry points, and also the first point of contact for young and emerging evaluators, but also everyone who's gone through the educational system, to be introduced into evaluative thinking, systems thinking. So when they go out to their whatever field that they choose to, it is a valuable skill, and it's something that will be further amplified and strengthened once they join those sectors and professional roles. And in this case, I'd like to speak a little on the role of the Pacific community, which is the principal scientific and technical organization that supports our leaders. So I mentioned about the 2050 strategy that is housed under our Pacific Island Forum that serves the leaders. And SPC really brings in that, or Pacific community brings in that scientific and technical support to implementing and delivering these aspirations. And one of those was partnering with regional institutions in the region to develop the first ever, first ever in the Southern Hemisphere Pacific Diploma in Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning. So a diploma or a curriculum that helps support existing practitioners, and noting that a lot of people do monitoring and evaluation or do evaluation. They just do not call it that. Whether you are in, accounting or audit firms, whether you're in the private sector or whether you're in development, you do some sort of monitoring, evaluation, and of course, learning. But how can we support these people, and most importantly, our Pacific people, to be able to also access those other opportunities that the region demands of them, and most importantly, demands of their culturally responsive know-hows and also their context-specific know-hows on the ground to better implement and develop or deliver those development programs. So with that, the diploma is, which is a ring the bell moment for the whole of the Pacific, is a ring the bell moment that we're now having our first cohort that is running to support, young emerging evaluators who may be interested in jumping into MEL. And this is available at one of our regional universities, the University of the South Pacific. And secondly, I'd like to also speak on those research institutions and importance of strengthening those partnerships and emphasizing on those research institutions' roles in continuing to engage, young and emerging researchers or development practitioners or indigenous practitioners into the research work. So they will be able to weave in not only, new ideas, innovative ideas, but most importantly, traditional methods with specific approaches, such as the Talanoa dialogue frameworks, Vanua framework, the Kakala framework, which is just to name a few, which is very much used and common in the Pacific. Thirdly is the roles of the private sectors. While emerging, the private sector, contributes innovation, resources, and partnership in strengthening our national evaluation system. We see, for instance, the big four, accounting firms branching into evaluation in our regions. How can we ensure that they continue to work together with the local practitioners and the communities of practice that are present, may not be formalized, but are present in our countries, to ensure that, their approaches are ethically and culturally responsive. Yes, you can bring the money, but if it does not serve for our people, or it does not have good intentions to leave our people better than they are, rather than pinpointing what did not go well, what programs should be plugged out, we really need to rethink in how we can support the private sector and fundings into channeling it into a more sustainable way, and most importantly, ways in that is most beneficial to the people that we serve on the ground. It may start off as tokenistic, but through constant engagement and finding the right entry points, we may be able to turn a leaf to better and intentional collaboration and partnership. And lastly, but most importantly, a really important stakeholder is those networks and communities of practice that I had alluded to earlier. It is always important to look at these networks. Like I said, they may not be formal, but they are there on the ground, and they will be able to tell you firsthand the realities on the ground, and they themselves representing different sectors and industries. And for this, I'd like to speak on to the Pacific Eval Youth chapter, as well as the Fiji community of practice, just being able to bring in different stakeholders, both from the national planning to our Bureau of Statistics divisions, to our NGOs, to local MEL practitioners or evaluators working in CSO or donor programs, just bringing them into one space and just building that safe space for them to not only contribute, but also look at practical solutions in ways that we can strengthen national evaluation system, whether it takes that, it becomes an evaluation association, a society, or to support our government in setting up ethical standards, to support the decisions and developments. Those are different ways in which these communities of practice can support and strengthen national evaluation systems. Like I mentioned, these are practitioners who represent different sectors and different industries, and they will be able to bring in, the realities and real-time updates and the heartbeat on the ground with their offerings that they're able to bring to the table. So, then in a nutshell is, I guess, generally the roles
it's
of
been
the
more than
stakeholders.
more than
Thank
10
you.
minutes for a 3-minute answer. So please move on. Otherwise,
That
we
in
are
a big
almost at the
nutshell.
end of our time and Daniel hasn't spoken yet. But I really want to hear from Daniel. We have heard a bit about the Pacific region islands, Nepal, Australia, and Kyrgyzstan. From you, I want to also get a perspective from you have worked with different countries from multilateral agencies lens. So what are some common challenges which countries face in institutionalization of NEPS?
Excellent. Thank you for your question and thank you for having me today. I also want to take just a second to commend APEA for bringing the community of evaluation together to have those discussions, and I think they are quite important. And I will try to remain within the 3 minutes, Yanti. So regarding your question, maybe let me start by saying that each country faces context-specific challenge. But it's really true that in the perspective of an institution mandated to support NEPS, as UNICEF is, we do notice some commonalities. And I will share a couple of them, even though it's not an exhaustive list. It's just to start the conversation. So the first one, and it is the critical one, is the lack of a strong political will. So without this political will and commitment, but also as it was mentioned in the presentation of Brad, the sustained leadership support across time, we often see that efforts on NEPS stall or remain fragmented. The second one was also mentioned. It is regarding the absence of a policy framework. And we saw that in the map that was presented at the beginning, that several countries in a region, but also globally, lack a current and enforceable policy that mandate evaluation. And even if they have one, they often lack the implementation mechanism. And as you can imagine, without it, it leads to confusion about role, about the consistency of practice, about issue in the coordination between the different actors. And there, don't get me wrong, what I'm saying is that obviously an evaluation policy is necessary, but is not sufficient. And the implementation mechanism really are a key critical factor. Maybe the third I can think of is institutional capacity. So for a NEPS to be effective, we really need to have a robust institution equipped with skilled staff, clear process, and adequate infrastructure. However, in many countries that we support, we see that evaluation institutions have significant gap in terms of technical expertise, in terms of operation capacity. You don't have formal training in evaluation, you don't have knowledge exchange, you don't have master or university degree in evaluation, which obviously present a core challenge. The fourth, and is probably one of the obvious one and was mentioned, I think, in the presentation of Nepal, is the resource constraint. Many governments struggle to allocate sufficient resources, both financial but also human, to evaluation. And when they do, the sustainability of this financing is also a major challenge. I would add to that many of them actually over-rely on donor funding, which sometimes can skew the evaluation toward a different agenda. So this is quite a critical one. The last one I want to share is more related to stakeholder collaboration, and this was kind of mentioned in Eroni's presentation, is that NEPS really need to be inclusive and support the active participation of different types of actors. So we have government, we have parliamentarian, we have civil society, academia, and others. But in practice, what we see is that this collaboration very often suffer from the limited awareness on the value of evaluation, the misalignment of priority between different actors, so the political economy around it, but also the lack of coordination mechanism amongst the different type of stakeholders. So in a nutshell, and to summarize in the allocated time, these 5 common challenges that affect the institutionalization of NEPS are obviously the lack of strong political will, the absence of policy framework and implementation mechanism, the weak institutional capacity, resource constraint, and finally, the inefficiency of stakeholders collaboration. So that's all for me, and back to you, Yanti.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Now, in the interest of time, we'll be asking a few questions only. But without wasting time, I'd like to go to Professor Brad. Coming back to you, how do you think a country can develop the technical and operational skills needed for effective evaluation? And I think all of us here from different countries would like to hear from you on this question.
Thank you. I think we've heard about the value of both formal and informal education. So at the at the individual level, there's a need to build people's knowledge, skills, practices around how to do good evaluation. I've trained a lot of people in how to do evaluation, both in a formal sense, in a university scheme, and those people are now in the ecosystem. So I taught a course for 10 years, and maybe there's 1,000 people who've gone through that, and they're part of the fabric of the Australian ecosystem now in internal evaluation units and so on. So I think building the supply of people with the right competencies around evaluation, having them situated in positions within government and industry and elsewhere is important. But often people don't have the time to do a formal degree, or it's too expensive. So I think we need to continue to provide informal professional development, as well as, if you've done a degree 10 years ago, evaluation methodology theory is rapidly changing. So I think the role of VOPEs or evaluation associations are really critical for continuing to provide that. And fortunately in Australia, we do have a healthy evaluation society that provides very regular workshops and so on to keep people abreast of the latest developments in the field, as well as providing introductory courses and so on for people. You asked a question there about the technical side of it as well. I think there's a lot we heard around infrastructure and databases and all that. To do good evaluation, you need good data. You can either collect it yourself, which can be more expensive, or you can use existing data. And so there is a trend in Australia towards trying to leverage existing data sets, link data, and improve the way data in general is captured and maximised. And that can be quite difficult. Government departments operate in silos. There's problems with the data sets. There's lack of resourcing for data custodians, and there's a lot of privacy and other sorts of issues. But I think, the technical aspect of it is really important. I think we could be doing more globally around maximising how we use existing data in an ethical way. But I think it does really come down to being able to provide education, training, professional development opportunities, and that is starting to happen in government as well. So traditionally in Australia, it's universities and evaluation associations. So we've had an evaluation association since '82. We've had university degrees from about as early as then, and which became more formalised in the '90s. So we've got a kind of longer history of being able to supply evaluators into the ecosystem. And so I think that government are now starting to do that as well in terms of internal evaluation units and capability building. There's an initiative called the APS Academy that's been beginning to develop things for public servants, because often the question is, how much evaluation do you need to know? And so there's the concept of being evaluation literate and being able to commission good evaluations. And so, evaluation is a very vast sort of skill set, very large range of competencies. And I think we need to kind of tailor the way we build people's capacities and capabilities to suit their role. And I'm a big fan of the concept of evaluative thinking as well. So embedding, critical thinking, evaluative thinking. You don't necessarily have to be a formally trained evaluator. And I think those sorts of things are important as well. So yeah, it has to be attacked at all angles, all levels, individual, organizational level, and there needs to be the opportunities, and they need to be available in a way that is not too expensive for people, because universities are very much like businesses these days. So that's that's where I'll leave it. And see, there's a few questions coming through, and we got 20 minutes left, so I'm not sure whether we've
Thank you so much. Actually, now I think it's better that we go on to the Q&A section. A lot of questions coming in. So, Yatin, over to you.
Yeah, so the first question asked by Zinzin was around why is the Supreme Audit Office so important in this research? What is the implication for evaluation? It has been partially answered in the chat by Fiona, but I would like Mohib to make a comment here.
So in regard to that question, why we include the audit institutions, the key reason for that is we use the evaluation globe framework, which includes audit institutions, and audit institutions in many countries are undertaking performance evaluation and program evaluation. So that's why they're critical in that sense, and they're included in the data collection and in the data evaluation.
Thank you, Mohib.
Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I also want to, there's another question from Moses. The thing is that he is very curious to know how do national monitoring policies fit into NEPS, because he's mentioned that national M&E system was the focus of the last webinar, but now we're focusing more on national evaluation policy and system. So, Dr. Rosnath, in your opinion, how do you think national monitoring policy fit into NEPS? Could you please answer this question?
Yeah, I mean, national policy, if we see here, there will be a great framework, it may provide the guidelines for making a macro system of monitoring and evaluation. We can also prepare about the, development projects to be streamlined towards having a building up of indicators and making a baseline study, and so that we can move ahead, making a progress to show, and also engage of different stakeholders towards each other, so that we can prepare a good system, robust system towards the preparation of upcoming, and the reports and the feedback systems in the look of the NEP system. I hope that this may be the useful tools that can be used for developing other frameworks in different sectors. Like we can also harmonize about multi-sectoral activities, so that they come together and just maybe the synergistic effect to move ahead. I hope so.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Dr. Rosnath. So we have another question as well. So the question is, which element or component of the national monitoring and evaluation ecosystem would you consider as the primary driver or good starting point for its development? I think we would like to ask Daniel, forward this question to Daniel.
Okay, I'm not sure I have the right answer on that one. To be frank, I think they have all context specific. I think in one country, one may drive the system, in other, it might be another organization. Definitely, from the country I've supported, I see two key drivers. One being VOPE. VOPE has been in the case, for example, Sri Lanka and other countries that we have mentioned. Clearly, they were able to put the evaluation in the agenda. They pushed for the evaluation policy and other aspects. To get to a higher level of maturity, so meaning when the first steps have been already taken towards a NEPS, I think that engaging the parliament is where you get the higher level of result. And I think Natalia is the best person here to talk about it. Really, they have the power oversight, they have budgetary mandate, so I think they can really push the agenda over.
Thank you, Daniel. for a brief answer, to the point answer. We have one more question in the chat coming from Pramath around how do we ensure validation of evaluation process such as data collection, analysis, and reporting before audit processes are done? And he further explained that since we have seen challenges associated with knowledge and human resource management, so how can we ensure validation in the evaluation process? Would anyone like to have a go?
I'm happy to answer.
Yes.
I may have misinterpreted the question because it's being slowly elaborated. I think a good national evaluation policy should include reference to meta evaluation. I've been fortunate enough to have encouraged government agencies to get more interested in doing that, and it can be very illuminating. So there's the retrospective look at, the quality of evaluations being produced under a national evaluation policy. If you're talking about a live evaluation, then, there's various sorts of methodological things that you need to do to enhance credibility and accuracy of the data that you're collecting, depending on quant, qual, or mixed methods. But in a broader sense, I think the idea of building meta evaluation into a national evaluation policy is really important. And I'll get one kind of more word in is the importance of evaluating national evaluation policies and policies. There's very little work that's being done globally on evaluating them to address all the sorts of we won't have time to talk about today, but I think there are a range of unintended potentially negative side effects. I know we're here to advocate for national evaluation policies, and I think they're a good thing, but they can lead to a tick box approach and evaluation machinery that is more compliance oriented and discourages learning and so on. So I think that there's two sides to the coin, and we should be, as good evaluators, we should be thinking about the kinds of challenges and unintended effects that will influence it. Having a policy is a good thing, depending on the quality, and having good criteria that we can all agree on that would fit what we think a good national evaluation policy framework or document or legislation looks like, but that won't guarantee the quality or the impact of it. We need to be looking at how we address the implementation and unintended side effects question. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Brad. We have one more question from Moses. He is currently working in a setting where it is a bit challenging to push government for accepting NEPS. And what would be the advices in this situation? I feel Honorable Natalia can come in here and give us some perspective.
Yeah, thank you. So we're coming back to the political will as we started with that, because it's really one of the crucial things. Definitely the governments, they can be reluctant, to promote nation evaluation policies, especially in emerging democracies, in the countries with turbulent political environment, like in our region, and I think in many countries in the region, unfortunately. So definitely how to make sure that the governments implement nation evaluation policies. So that ideally there should be leadership and political will in the government, in the parliament, and active VOPE and practitioners. And those triangle, let's say, provides the really development and promotion of national evaluation policies on different levels. But practically, it not always happens. So I just give the example how the parliaments, and Daniel mentioned that as well, so how can they use their primarily oversight function that any parliament has to make sure that governments, they're instrumenting, they're developing NEPS, they're institutionalizing. So this is the asking questions from the government. And there are so many tools inside the parliament for that. Parliamentary days, hours, meetings, requests to the executive branches, etc. Parliamentary committees, they are those entities which are constitutionally empowered, set up legislation and provide the oversight over the executive branch. So one of the easiest way that our countries also used, start to work with the parliament, find the leaders and champions, members of parliament who understand the context, who can work with VOPE and actually promote this legal framework inside the parliament to set up this and then ask the questions from the government, how the national evaluation policy is developed, to make sure that it's driven, etc. We also have the example when we established the legislation and the practical tool for the parliamentarian committees, how to organize evaluation and how to ask questions from the government to make sure that the national evaluation policies are in place. And the second example, this is the SDG, and many parliaments, they definitely use this leverage. So our members of parliaments organize the independent SDG monitoring group, which also monitors and oversights other the executive branch, the government, how the SDG is implemented according to the different criteria, etc., requests evaluation on the regular basis. So this might be the kind of a tool that can be very practically used.
Thank you, Honorable Natalia. So we'll move to the last part of the event now. Firstly, we will have a group picture. I request everyone attending to turn on the camera for some time and give a nice smile so that we can have a good group picture for everyone. Ahmad, let us know when we are done. I stop sharing for now.
Yeah, please open camera for everyone. Yeah, we have 2 pages. And page 1. And page 2. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ahmad. So we'll move to the last part. I request Honorable Ramesh to give a summary and the way forward for the NEPS theme in the coming year. Honorable Ramesh, to you.
Thank you, Atin. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ramesh Paudel, speaking from Kathmandu. I serve as an executive committee member of the Asia Pacific Parliamentarians Forum for Evaluation and a member of the NEPS team of the Asia Pacific Regional Evaluation Strategy. To summarize today's event, the program was moderated.
Hello, Ramesh.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. The program was moderated by 2 esteemed moderators, Yatin and Rajani, and began with opening remarks by Professor Yoko, President of APIA, and Ms. Uga, co-leader of EvalYouth Asia. Later, Mr. Mohi presented the NEPS data for the Asia Pacific region, showcasing an interactive map that is now also accessible on the APIA website. Then we started the panel discussions. We had 5 panelists, each with extensive knowledge and insights into the subject, sharing their experiences. We had Professor Brad. Professor Brad serves as an Associate Professor of Health System Evaluation at the University of Melbourne, Australia. He highlighted key policy frameworks and regulations essential for establishing a strong NEPS using examples from Australia. We had Dr. Rose. As a secretary in the Federal Parliament Secretariat of Nepal, he highlighted how Nepal has been addressing challenges related to financial and human resources, drawing from the country's experience in formulating national evaluation policies and systems. He provided specific examples from the health and education sectors in Nepal. We had Mr. Ironi. Mr. Ironi is the co-leader of EvalYouth Pacific. He analyzed the key stakeholders such as government, civil society, NGOs, academia, and the private sector, and their roles in strengthening national evaluation strategies. He highlighted the critical contributions and responsibilities of each stakeholder group in fostering effective evaluation systems. We had Honorable Natalia. Honorable Natalia is a former member of parliament from Kyrgyz Republic and an active member of the Global Parliamentarians Forum for Evaluation. She emphasized the importance of institutional and organizational structures for building a robust NEPS. She discussed the urgency of obtaining accurate data from individual countries and the challenges in implementing existing policies. Additionally, she highlighted the crucial role of parliaments in being informed about every evaluation initiatives. We had Mr. Daniel. Mr. Daniel is a multi-country evaluation specialist from the UNICEF Regional Office for South Asia. He highlighted the unique and similar challenges faced by different countries in institutionalizing national evaluation policies and systems. Among the challenges he discussed were issues such as budget allocations and their impact on the implementation of effective evaluation systems. The panelists also addressed the questions that came from the audience in the chat box. To talk about the way forward, the NEPS team has outlined several key priorities for 2025 to advance its objectives and strengthen evaluation practices across the Asia Pacific region. A major focus will be on a comprehensive documentation of lesson learned and best practices from ongoing NEPS initiatives. These efforts aim to build and maintain a robust repository of knowledge that can guide member countries in addressing common challenges and implementing effective evaluation strategies. Joint webinars will be co-organized with other thematic groups to deepen understanding of NEPS. The webinars will serve as a platform for sharing insights, fostering dialogue, and building capacity among stakeholders. The NEPS team will actively prepare for its contribution to the APIA Conference 2025, which is planned to take place in Japan. This includes organizing thematic sessions, presenting findings, and showcasing success stories to further promote the importance of evaluation policies and systems. Efforts will be intensified to engage countries that have not yet been part of the NEPS framework. This will involve collecting fresh data on evaluation practices in these regions, ensuring broader representation and inclusivity in the evaluation landscape. By focusing on these priorities, the NEPS team aim to create a more inclusive, informed, and effective evaluation ecosystem across the Asia Pacific region. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ramesh. Now the final task, vote of thanks. I request Jerel to come forward. She's a member of the NEPS team of APRES and has worked with the M&D Department of Mongolia. She's currently pursuing her degree in Business Analytics at Bentley University. Jerel, over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. And good morning and good afternoon, good evening, everyone. The first and foremost, the big thank you with our esteemed speakers. Also, Ironi, your insight is the pivotal role of the government in a national evaluation policy, and also ethical standards were invaluable. Also, Daniel, your discussion and unique challenges faced by the different countries and the importance of the sustainable leadership and also stakeholder collaboration was the enlightening. Brad, your emphasis on the right comprehensive and the benefits and improvement professional development, particularly through the Australian Evaluation Association. It was very informative. Ms. Natila, you highlighted the significant gaps in Central Asia regarding policy implementation and political frameworks and need better cooperation and networking. It was very good informative. I think it is the faced many countries who has the socialist economic countries transition also. And Roger, you clearly outlined the need for the financial resources and the loop system and comprehensive human resource training in Nepal to involve all sectors. I would like to thank you, our organizers and technical team, for their hard work behind the scene. Your efforts are deeply appreciated. Finally, thank you all the participants for your active engagement. Thank you all once again and have a great day. Have a good evening. You think over to you.
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Jerel. Just few announcements at the end. Tomorrow we have the SALT webinar, which is the next event in the EvalVision Asia. If you are not already registered for this event, please register and join us. And the next event is the Nexus of Environmental, Social and Governance and Social Impact Measurement. Please also join us for this event. And we also have a call for papers for the Asia Pacific Journal of Evaluation. If you have any interesting research, any ideas you want to submit, please submit by 25th of January. And thank you, everyone, and please keep in touch.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, panel members.
Thank you, Naka.